Once a feared knockout artist and UFC champion of 2 divisions, Conor McGregor has now gone 1-3 in his last 4 UFC outings. Cowboy is the only opponent he's managed to finish in almost 5 years, and he was obviously well past his prime. McGregor's downfall over the last few years has a lot of factors that you'd have to take into consideration, but a big thing that stands out is his team. Many fans have been asking questions regarding game plans, preparation, and training partners. So let's break it all down. If you're breaking down Conor as a fighter, the 2 glaring holes in his game are his grappling and cardio, both of which have barely improved in the last 6 years. I feel like any elite level gym would have gotten his grappling to a much higher standard. Watching him be that useless on the ground at this level against Dustin was just ridiculous. He actually put up a better fight against McGregor. Ironically, the one thing John could have taught Conor was how to survive on the ground, yet put him on his back, and within 15 seconds, he literally looks like he's drowning. Conor has actually regressed in a lot of ways. Not only has there been holes in SBG's training, but they've also made some really questionable calls regarding game plans that have really made me scratch my head. I still can't get over how unprepared he was for the calf kicks in the second fight. Kavanagh's recent comments on the fight have pretty much solidified for me that he is not looking at this situation honestly, which again further implies that there have in fact been holes in Conor's training. Even with his other fighters there have been questionable decisions. I remember when Gunnar Nelson fought Damian Maia, he was in the corner telling Gunnar to continue grappling and hunt for guillotines going into the third, after 2 rounds of being made to look like a white belt. Conor's stance and his reliance on boxing alone makes him way too predictable. He throws the same combinations repeatedly and rarely switches it up. The only thing that has improved since he was in the featherweight division is his boxing, but it's also been his downfall because he's leaving out his karate game, which is what made him so exciting and unpredictable in the first place. For the Dustin fight, I don't get how you go through a boxing focus camp and come out with that. He keeps throwing the same shot regardless if it's working, and rarely switches it up. Between rounds, there's very little technical insights shared, other than repeatedly saying, "You look beautiful." In the fight with Dustin, between the first and second round, there was zero concern about the leg kicks, which were causing Conor all sorts of problems. Stuff like that is literally the basics. They go in with terrible game plans, but then they also never seem to have a plan B. They didn't game plan very well at all, which is embarrassing considering how they were saying it was going to be, and I quote, "a masterclass in perfect performance." Conor had even said he's been unhappy with game plans, such as the Nurmagomedov fight, saying it was too defensive even outside of the grappling, and that he should have brought much more offensive striking pressure than he did. Conor was indecisive and hesitant, which is obviously so out of character. Trying to finish in the first few rounds is his best opportunity against a monster like Nurmagomedov, especially because Conor tends to gas out in the later rounds. Kavanagh said that their game plan was to get Conor to tire him out, so he can try and get him in the later rounds, which is just preposterous. Conor had never gone 5 rounds other than the second Diaz fight. He hadn't even gone a full 3 rounds outside of Diaz 2, since his second fight in the UFC. It would appear that John Kavanagh has only actually developed one world-class fighter in the history of his gym. SBG has yet to produce anyone of a standard near McGregor, despite having a plethora of young talent join his team. And Conor actually developed his striking outside of SBG, who have zero ability in that department, as seen by the fact that they produce some of the worst strikers who have been in the UFC. I really believe that it's Conor's raw talent that got him to where he is, despite being surrounded by substandard coaches. I'd attribute very little of his success to Kavanagh. Kavanagh is levels below the likes of a Trevor Whitman, Firas Zahabi, and Greg Jackson, just to name a few. In his interviews, Kavanagh comes across as very smug and pompous. There always seems to be a lot of delusion with him post-fight. According to him, McGregor was doing really well against Dustin at UFC 264 before he broke his leg. The last time I checked, the judges scored the first round 10-8, 10-8 and 10-9 in favor of Dustin. Obviously a coach isn't going to trash his own fighters in interviews, but you've still gotta be honest with yourself, and someone like McGregor definitely needs honest people around him. Especially when you look at the direction his career has gone in. It seems like Conor runs his own camp and picks the direction they go in. He needs a real head coach that isn't gonna let that fly. With his money he can afford a GSP type of coaching team and go back to the basics. But at the same time with Conor's ego, he isn't about to hire someone who tells it like it is. You can look at a fighter like the Korean Zombie, who went to America and spent additional money just to get elite training that wasn't available in his country. Even Bisping trained in the UK for a lot of his career, but he eventually outgrew them. He became a better fighter, a fitter and smarter fighter, and then relocated. I also think the decline began when he stopped training with his former sparring partners and started relying on local amateur boxers. I think he needs better training partners. He has no UFC caliber sparring partners at the gym. His problem is he likes to keep a very tight-knit and closed circle, but I think he could do so much more for his game if he just had 1 or 2 high-level UFC guys with him, which he doesn't have at SBG in comparison to the likes of American Top Team, or AKA. Conor's original karate coach ended up having to go to jail for manslaughter a few years ago. I wonder if SBG found it hard to replace him. I don't think SBG can propel his game any further. He's hit the ceiling. It's not too late for McGregor to make a change, but he needs to do so now. So what do you think? Should Conor switch camps? Let me know what you think below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.